The dull ache in Clara Sterling's ribs was a constant reminder of the bullet she'd taken for him, but the sharp sting of Ethan Blackwood's indifference cut deeper. From her sterile hospital bed, she watched him fuss over Cassandra Thorne's scraped ankle, presenting her with a diamond pendant, a gesture Clara herself had once meticulously taught him to make. Then, his cold voice sliced through the air. "You're being overly dramatic, Clara." The cheap, complimentary lotion on her bedside table felt like a final, mocking insult. Her decade of devotion had just solidified into a bitter, unyielding resolve. The scent of synthetic lavender from the lotion mingled sickeningly with the cloying sweetness of the lilies Ethan had sent not for her, but for Cassandra, who now sashayed into Clara's sterile room, a picture of delicate vulnerability. Cassandra, her ankles swathed in pristine bandages that seemed more decorative than therapeutic, leaned heavily on Ethan's arm. Her eyes, however, glinted with a triumph that belied her fragile posture. "Oh, darling," she cooed, her voice saccharine, "Clara looks better, wouldn't you say? Such a trooper, taking a bullet like that." The patronizing tone twisted the knife in Clara's fresh wound. Ethan merely grunted, his gaze fixed on Cassandra. "Clara, Cassandra's ankle is bothering her. You know a good massage helps circulation." Clara stared, her throat tight. A good massage? She was barely able to sit up, her own body a roadmap of surgical incisions and bruising. Yet, the implicit command in Ethan's voice was absolute. Cassandra's perfectly manicured hand extended, revealing a delicate wrist, a mockery of the life Clara had almost lost. "Oh, you don't mind, do you, Clara? You're so good with your hands. Ethan says you used to be quite the caregiver." The words dripped with condescension, a deliberate reminder of Clara's subservient role. Clara's gaze met Ethan's. His was blank, devoid of any recognition of her suffering. Her decade of quiet sacrifices, the meticulous care she'd poured into making him the man he was, crumbled into dust. This wasn't just a request, it was a public degradation, a test of her enduring obedience. With a flicker of a deep, silent anger she hadn't known she possessed, Clara pushed herself upright, wincing as her weakened core muscles protested. Her fingers, still shaky from the trauma, reluctantly began to work on Cassandra's uninjured skin, carefully avoiding the flimsy bandage. Each stroke was an act of profound self-betrayal. Cassandra watched her, a cruel smirk playing on her lips, her eyes daring Clara to refuse. Then, with a sudden, sharp intake of breath, Cassandra cried out, Clara, you're hurting me. It's too hard." She flinched dramatically, pulling her foot away as if scalded. Ethan's head snapped up, his face contorting with immediate fury. "Clara, what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to deliberately injure her?" He stepped between them, his towering frame casting a shadow over Clara. "Can't you do anything right? This is a simple request, and you managed to botch it. You're worthless." His voice, usually a cold murmur, was edged with a venom that made the hospital room feel suddenly frigid. Clara's heart, still healing, constricted painfully. She met his furious gaze, searching for a flicker of the man she once loved, only to find a stranger, a cruel avatar of his true self. The bitter realization hit her. In his eyes, she was nothing but a disposable tool, easily replaced, easily maligned. "Get out," Ethan spat, his hand gesturing dismissively towards the door. "Go back to your room. Cassandra needs rest, and clearly, you're not helping." Clara, her body throbbing with renewed pain, slowly rose. The air thickened with unspoken accusations. As she turned to leave, her fragile ankle, still weak from her own injuries, wavered. Cassandra, her injured ankle now seemingly forgotten, subtly extended her foot just enough to catch Clara's. Clara stumbled, a gasp escaping her lips as she pitched forward, losing her balance. The pristine white bandage on Cassandra's ankle, ironically, was the last thing Clara saw before she fell. Her already compromised body could offer no resistance. She tumbled down the few steps leading out of the room, landing awkwardly with a sickening crunch. A sharp, searing pain shot through her left ankle, echoing the internal fracture in her spirit. "Oh my God, Clara. How clumsy." Cassandra shrieked, her voice laced with feigned concern, but her eyes, when they briefly met Clara's before Ethan's gaze could find them, were alight with malicious satisfaction. Ethan rushed to Cassandra's side, ignoring Clara, who lay crumpled on the floor, clutching her newly twisted ankle. "Darling, are you all right? She didn't hurt you, did she?" He never even glanced at Clara. "She's just a clumsy fool," Ethan, Cassandra purred, nestling into his embrace. "But maybe she needs to be taught a lesson about being more careful." A lesson. The word hung in the air, heavy with unspoken threat. Clara, gritting her teeth against the agony, tried to push herself up, but her ankles screamed in protest. Moments later, Ethan returned, his face a mask of cold fury. He grabbed Clara's arm, yanking her upright with a force that sent fresh pain through her entire body. "You will atone for this, Clara." He dragged her down the corridor, past startled nurses and curious patients, his grip unyielding. He didn't stop until they reached the grand, ornate staircase in the hospital's opulent lobby, a public spectacle. "Kneel," he commanded, his voice echoing in the sudden silence. "Kneel for every step. 99 steps. And consider this a reminder of your place." A crowd began to gather, murmuring, pointing. Humiliation washed over Clara, so potent it almost eclipsed the physical pain. Her shattered ankle buckled, but Ethan merely tightened his grip. "You want to leave here, you will kneel." Each agonizing descent onto her knees, each forced rise, was a fresh torment. The polished marble gleamed under the opulent chandeliers, reflecting her broken image. When she finally reached the bottom, trembling and drenched in cold sweat, Ethan stepped forward, pulling Cassandra to his side. He turned to the gathered onlookers, his voice booming with chilling clarity. "Clara Sterling is merely an adoptive sister. Nothing more. Our family's true happiness and my future lies with Cassandra Thorne." He then produced a diamond ring, dazzling under the lights, and slipped it onto Cassandra's finger. "We are engaged." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Clara's spirit, already battered, finally shattered into a million irreparable pieces. The pain in her body was nothing compared to the desolation in her soul. A cold, quiet resolve settled within her, like ash after a devastating fire. She would leave. And she would never look back. This wasn't just an ending, it was an obliteration. Cassandra's ultimate victory arrived not in a sneer, but in a pixelated image on Clara's stolen phone, retrieved from the bedside table. It was explicit, undeniable, a grotesque tableau of Ethan's lavish affections, meticulously taught by Clara herself, now lavished upon another. The last ember of Clara's love, long flickering, winked out, replaced by a cold, hard vacuum. Her heart didn't break, it simply ceased to feel, a silent, absolute surrender to the void. The dismantling began that night. Each photograph, each carefully penned note, each memento of a decade-long devotion was fed into the digital shredder of her mind, then physically destroyed. Ethan's gifts, once cherished symbols of a love she believed she could earn, were cataloged for sale, their value to be diverted to anonymous charities. Her legal records were quietly altered, erasing any claim, any connection, severing the invisible threads that bound her to the Blackwood name. When Ethan, through a terse email, demanded the ornate silver amulet, a gift from Eleanor, claiming Cassandra desired its unique charm, Clara didn't hesitate. She placed it in a small velvet pouch, a ghost of a whisper escaping her lips. "May it bring her all the happiness it denied me." She knew he wouldn't question it, too absorbed in his new obsession to notice the hollow ring of her compliance. Her severance, however, was violently interrupted. A black van, screeching to a halt outside the mansion, disgorged masked figures. It was Viktor Kirov, Ethan's long-standing business rival, a man whose ruthlessness mirrored Blackwood's own. Clara, shoved into the vehicle, found herself bound and gagged beside a whimpering Cassandra. The captor's demands were simple: Ethan must choose. One life for the other, or both perish. Hours later, Clara found herself in a precarious cage, suspended precariously above churning, shark-infested waters. Cassandra, surprisingly, was in a similar, but marginally more secure, cage nearby. Then, the phone call. Ethan's voice, cold and measured, echoed through a speaker, devoid of any discernible panic. Choose, Kirov's voice grated. The true heir, or the discarded plaything? A pause, stretched taut with Clara's last shred of hope. Cassandra, Ethan finally stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, is important to the future of Blackwood Corporation. Clara served her purpose. The word discarded resonated like a death knell. A sickening lurch, and Clara's cage began its descent. Just as the metal bars dipped towards the dark, swirling depths, a thunderous explosion rocked the night. A nearby yacht, Kirov's escape vessel, erupted in a fireball. Amidst the chaos, Ethan, having apparently tracked the location, materialized with a team of Blackwood security. He raced towards the cages, his eyes scanning for Cassandra, bypassing Clara's desperate gaze. He cut Cassandra free first, pulling her into his arms as another blast sent shrapnel flying. Clara's cage, now critically damaged, snapped its last cable, plunging her into the icy, turbulent sea. Ethan, focused solely on Cassandra's safety, didn't even glance back. Miraculously, Clara survived. Battered, bloodied, and half-drowned, she was pulled from the water by Kirov's remaining henchmen, who mistakenly believed she was still a valuable pawn, abandoning her later on a remote stretch of shore when Blackwood's forces closed in. Hours later, she was found, barely clinging to life, and rushed to the ER. There, the nightmare continued. Ethan, alerted to her presence, swept into the ER, not for her, but for Cassandra, whose minor scrapes and emotional distress he prioritized with frantic attention, while Clara lay, broken and bleeding, a gurney away. Her critical injuries met with a casual, dismissive wave of his hand. "Just patch her up," he'd ordered the nurse, his eyes fixed on Cassandra. As Clara drifted in and out of consciousness during her agonizing recovery, fragments of a forgotten past began to surface. A little girl with scraped knees, a kind boy with dark eyes, a shared secret hideout. The face of the girl in Ethan's locket, the one he mourned, the one Cassandra's plastic surgery had been meticulously designed to mimic. It was her, Clara Sterling. The realization hit her like a second bullet, a devastating, ironic twist of fate. She wasn't merely a discarded lover, she was the original love, the one he'd been searching for all along, blinded by his own grief and Cassandra's cunning. The pain was unbearable, but with it came a chilling clarity. Then a new presence. A man with eyes that held an uncanny resemblance to her own, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Liam Sterling. Her brother, who had finally found her after years of relentless searching, his face etched with worry, then relief, then burning indignation as he learned of her suffering. He orchestrated her escape, a swift, decisive operation that left Ethan's complacent security in disarray. She was brought home, not to a cold mansion, but to the sprawling, vibrant estate of the Sterling family, enveloped in a fierce, unconditional love that promised healing, protection, and a future free from the shadow of Blackwood. Enveloped in the unyielding embrace of the Sterling family, Clara's shattered world slowly began to mend. The sterile silence of Blackwood Manor was replaced by the warm hum of laughter and familial chatter in the sprawling Sterling estate. Liam, her long-lost brother, hovered with a fierce protectiveness, while his wife, Amelia, became a gentle confidant, her understanding gaze a balm to Clara's tormented soul. Physically, the bullet-wound healed, though a faint, silvery scar remained a permanent etch of Ethan's betrayal. Emotionally, the journey was longer. Nights were still plagued by phantom pains and visions of shark-infested waters, but the mornings brought Amelia's quiet encouragement and Liam's unwavering belief in her strength. Gradually, the vacant look in her eyes softened, replaced by a quiet determination. She was Clara Sterling again, not merely an extension of Ethan Blackwood's cruel whims. Her reawakening began with a singular focus: creativity. Channeling years of suppressed artistry, Clara poured her soul into founding Lunar Bloom, a floral design studio that quickly blossomed. Her innate talent for combining rare orchids with wild, untamed blooms, creating arrangements that told stories, resonated deeply with clients seeking unique expressions of beauty. Amelia, with her keen eye for aesthetics, joined forces, expanding their vision. A luxury perfume line, drawing inspiration from ancient botanical extracts, followed, its subtle, evocative scents becoming an instant sensation. Then came the themed photography studios, each space meticulously curated to capture the essence of fleeting moments, offering an escape into fantastical realms. Clara's new empire, built brick by painstaking brick, was a stark, vibrant contrast to her previous life of silent service and unacknowledged sacrifices. Every successful launch, every glowing review, was a quiet rebellion, a testament to her inherent worth. Yet, even as Clara ascended, the tremors of Ethan Blackwood's world began. The seeds of his downfall, meticulously sown by Clara's discreet, pre-departure directives to her network of sympathetic contacts within the industry, started to sprout. Details of the charity banquet she had so painstakingly planned for months, now claimed and botched by Cassandra Thorne, began to leak through Ethan's former butler, a man loyal to Clara, who found his conscience stirred by the blatant injustices. He revealed not just the meticulous planning Clara had undertaken, but also the dismissive way Ethan had allowed Cassandra to botch it, wasting millions in donor funds and tarnishing Blackwood Corp's philanthropic image. Public outrage, slow to ignite, now mounted like a tidal wave. Whispers of Ethan's cruel treatment of his adoptive sister, Clara, mingled with outright accusations of Cassandra's fraudulent conduct. Anonymous tips, fueled by disaffected former Blackwood employees and a resentful social circle, flooded tabloids and social media. The image of the cold-hearted CEO was amplified, transforming into a ruthless tyrant, while Cassandra, once seen as a delicate beauty, was exposed as a manipulative, opportunistic social climber. Blackwood Corp's stock began a slow, insidious decline, mirroring the erosion of Ethan Blackwood's carefully constructed public persona. Meanwhile, Ethan's world was crumbling from within. He dismissed the initial public outcry as mere gossip, but the growing financial losses and the palpable shift in his social standing gnawed at him. He found himself on the rooftop of Blackwood Tower, the biting wind mirroring the chill in his heart, confronting Cassandra. "Explain yourself, Cassandra," he demanded, his voice a low growl, devoid of its usual detached calm. "The market is reacting. Our reputation is in tatters." Cassandra, caught off guard, initially feigned innocence, but the pressure of her crumbling charade, coupled with a flash of her inherent cruelty, broke her composure. "What's there to explain, Ethan?" she sneered, her carefully constructed fragility dissolving into a spiteful grin. "I did what you wanted. I got rid of Clara. And honestly, she made it so easy. So pathetically devoted, so predictable. It was almost boring how quickly she fell for everything I did." Her laughter, sharp and ugly, sliced through the air. "You really believed all my little scrapes and tears, didn't you? It was all for show, darling. All for the Blackwood name, the Blackwood money. You were just a means to an end." The words struck Ethan like a physical blow. The illusion he had so painstakingly maintained, the blind devotion he had showered on this woman, shattered into a million pieces. His face, usually a mask of indifference, contorted in a horrifying grimace. The rage that ignited within him was unlike anything he had ever known, a seething, vengeful inferno that promised to consume everything in its path, starting with Cassandra Thorne. The cold fury that had consumed Ethan Blackwood after his confrontation with Cassandra Thorne was not a fleeting storm, but a glacial, destructive force that meticulously carved its path. He moved with a chilling precision, every command a dagger aimed at the heart of Cassandra's carefully constructed world. Within days, Cassandra Thorne's perfect face, the very canvas of her deceit, was irrevocably altered through a brutal, strategically botched cosmetic surgery, a punishment orchestrated by Ethan's veiled hand, leaving her disfigured and a grotesque parody of her former beauty. A torrent of leaked documents, anonymous tips, and damning testimonies then flooded the media, exposing Cassandra's meticulous history as a professional con artist, her string of wealthy victims, and her cynical manipulation of Ethan himself. She became a grotesque spectacle, her carefully constructed persona shattering under the weight of public ridicule. Ethan ensured her downfall mirrored Clara's humiliation, only amplified. Cassandra was stripped of her ill-gotten gains, shunned, and left to wander the city's fringes, her pleas for help falling on deaf ears, every mirror a cruel reminder of her ruin. His vengeance didn't stop there. Viktor Kirov, Ethan's former rival who had briefly held Clara captive, found his criminal enterprise systematically dismantled. Ethan moved with ruthless efficiency, exposing Kirov's network, freezing his assets, and orchestrating his swift, brutal downfall. The move cemented Ethan's reputation as a man capable of unimaginable cruelty, a predator unleashed, far more dangerous than anyone had previously believed. But the true precipice of his public ruin came with the anonymous leak of footage from the monastery. The grainy video, played on an endless loop across social media, showed Ethan's callous disregard for Clara, his brutal decree to force her to her knees, and the public disavowal of her as merely an adoptive sister. The public outcry was instantaneous and deafening. Blackwood Corp, already reeling from previous scandals, swiftly suspended its CEO, facing a catastrophic PR crisis. His family, particularly Eleanor, recoiled in horror, abandoning him to the maelstrom of his own making. A desperate, drunken confrontation with a vengeful former associate left him with a broken leg and the loss of his left eye, a jagged, permanent reminder of his spiraling descent into madness. Stripped of everything he valued, power, reputation, and the illusion of love, Ethan was left with a gaping void. It was in this desolation that a dark, insidious obsession began to fester: Clara Sterling. He meticulously replayed every interaction, every dismissed plea, every quiet sacrifice. The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. Clara wasn't just a love, she was the love, the first love he had inadvertently sought to recreate in Cassandra, the one whose memories he had mourned, never realizing she was right there all along. His mind, broken and desperate, fixated on this single, agonizing truth, twisting his remorse into a possessive, desperate hunger to reclaim her. She was his salvation, his redemption, and he would stop at nothing to get her back. Miles away, in the quiet elegance of her thriving floral studio, Lunar Bloom, Clara Sterling moved with a serene confidence that belied her past. Fragments of Ethan Blackwood's spectacular implosion occasionally reached her, a hushed news report, a clipped comment from Liam. Yet, the news stirred no triumph, no bitter satisfaction. Only a quiet, almost clinical detachment. The man who had once been her world was now a distant, fading echo, irrelevant to her vibrant present. Her days were filled with the brilliant hues of blossoms, the delicate scents of her new perfume line, and the unwavering affection of her found family and blossoming relationship, her focus firmly on the burgeoning empire she was building, unburdened by the debris of Ethan's self-inflicted ruin. Clara Sterling returned to the sprawling metropolis, not with a desire for vengeance, but a quiet resolution to tie up loose ends and safeguard those who deserved it. Her first stop was the upscale nursing home where Eleanor Blackwood now resided. The once elegant matriarch, aged and frail, sat by a sunlit window, a ghost of her former self, a casualty of her son's destructive path. Clara approached, her heart softening with genuine affection for the woman who had once offered her solace. As Clara recounted anecdotes of her thriving floral design studio, Lunar Bloom, a shadow fell across the room. Ethan Blackwood, a gaunt, hollow-eyed figure, stood framed in the doorway. His once commanding presence was diminished, replaced by a desperate fragility. A crude eye patch covered his missing eye, and a noticeable limp dragged his left leg, tangible symbols of his self-inflicted ruin. He moved like a predatory animal brought to its knees, all sharp edges dulled by an overwhelming despair. He ignored Eleanor, his gaze fixed solely on Clara, a fervent, almost maniacal hunger in his eyes. "Clara," his voice was raspy, broken. "Please, forgive me." He stumbled forward, kneeling clumsily before her. I offer you everything. Blackwood Corp, all my assets, my name, my life. It's all yours if only you'll give me another chance. I was blind, a fool. You are my first love, my only love." Clara regarded him with an unsettling calm, her expression serene, yet devoid of any lingering affection. Her eyes, once brimming with an unrequited devotion, now held only a cool, distant appraisal. "Your love, Ethan," she stated, her voice steady and clear, "is a clumsy imitation. It's a possessive desire to reclaim what you failed to cherish, a desperate grasping at a past you meticulously destroyed." She stood, and the movement revealed the faint, yet undeniable, disfiguring scars etched across her collarbone and shoulder, remnants of the bullet wound, a permanent testament to his cruelty and the near-fatal consequences of her loyalty. "These are your gifts to me," she continued, her finger tracing the raised skin. "A daily reminder of how close your actions brought me to oblivion." His pleas turned to desperate sobs, his broken form trembling. "I can make it right. I swear. We can rebuild." A soft, confident smile touched Clara's lips. "Rebuild what, Ethan? The life you shattered? I have already built a new one. A fulfilling one, filled with genuine love and respect." Her hand instinctively found the arm of the tall, handsome man who had silently stepped to her side, her bodyguard, and now her partner. His presence was a quiet, undeniable declaration, a stark contrast to Ethan's chaotic despair. Just then, the doors swung open again. Liam Sterling, his face etched with protective fury, entered with Amelia and a phalanx of security personnel. His gaze swept over Ethan, cold and unwavering. "Blackwood," Liam's voice was a low growl. "You are no longer welcome near my sister. Consider this your final warning. Any further attempts to harass or approach her will be met with the full force of the Sterling Corporation." The bodyguards formed a silent, impenetrable wall, effectively severing Ethan's access. Eleanor, witnessing the scene, let out a soft, mournful whimper. Clara turned from Ethan, dismissing him entirely. She embraced Eleanor warmly, her voice gentle. "Don't worry, Eleanor. You will be well cared for. Your future is secure." She had already arranged for Eleanor's complete financial stability, ensuring her peace and comfort away from the Blackwood turmoil. As they departed, Ethan remained a crumpled heap on the floor, his empire and desperate hopes shattered around him. Weeks later, a chilling autumn rain slicked the grimy streets. Clara and Amelia, leaving a charitable gala, spotted a familiar, yet grotesquely altered figure huddled beneath a tattered awning. Cassandra Thorne, her once delicate features twisted into an unrecognizable caricature of plastic surgery gone horribly wrong, her face a map of fresh, angry scars, held out a trembling hand for alms. Her eyes, devoid of their former cunning, held only a vacant, haunted despair. Amelia recoiled in disgust, but Clara paused. She reached into her purse, not with pity, but with a detached, clinical compassion. She offered Cassandra a crisp bill and a warm pastry she'd carried from the event. "Eat," Clara said, her voice devoid of sentimentality, yet equally free of malice. "You were merely a tool, Cassandra, in a man's self-destructive path. A sharp one, perhaps, but a tool nonetheless." She watched the disfigured woman snatch the offerings, then turned and walked away, the umbrella shielding her from the rain, and her heart shielded from the past. The cycle of cruelty had ended, not with vengeance, but with a quiet, resolute release. The damp, cavernous archives of Blackwood Corp held the scent of dust and dying ambition. Ethan Blackwood, a ghost of his former imposing self, stumbled amidst towering shelves, the single eye that remained darting frantically over ledgers and faded photographs. Julian, his illegitimate half-brother, emerged from the shadows, a glint of triumph in his eyes, a glint mirrored by the steel held by a former business partner who had once bowed to Ethan's every whim. There was no struggle, only a broken man's weary acceptance as the blade plunged home. He fell amidst the scattered relics of his empire, a gurgle escaping his lips as his blood stained the papers detailing generations of Blackwood dominance. Yet, even in death's embrace, his mind clung to one image: Clara. His first love, the phantom he'd chased, abused, and ultimately lost. A twisted clarity consumed him. If he couldn't have her, if his name was to be forever tarnished, then nothing should remain. With a final, desperate surge of strength, his trembling hand ignited the fuel he'd strategically placed, a mad gleam in his eye. Flames erupted, consuming the archives, the empire, and the broken man within. The Blackwood legacy, built on ruthlessness and ambition, would end in a self-made pyre, a destructive, final declaration of his poisoned love. Miles away, on a secluded island shore, Clara Sterling laughed, the sound light and free as waves kissed her bare feet. Her partner, a man whose quiet devotion was a balm to her soul, held her close, tracing patterns on her back. The world felt boundless, vibrant, a canvas of endless possibilities. The chime of her phone pulled her from the idol. It was Liam, his voice unusually somber. "Clara, it's Ethan. He's dead." The Blackwood Court building. It burned to the ground. He was inside. A sudden, indescribable heaviness settled in her chest, a phantom weight from a past life. It wasn't sorrow nor triumph, but the profound echo of a chapter irrevocably closed. She closed her eyes, picturing the man who had almost destroyed her, the man whose cruelty had forged her into the woman she was today. The past, with all its agony and transformation, washed over her, a tide receding. Then, as quickly as it came, the heaviness dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of release, of ultimate, unburdened freedom. He was gone. The endless cycle of his toxic presence, even in memory, was finally broken. Debts, she realized, were cleared not by vengeance, but by absence. She chose to leave him, and his ghost, in the dust of the inferno he'd created. She opened her eyes, met her partner's concerned gaze, and offered a soft, genuine smile. Back in the quiet comfort of the Sterling estate, Eleanor Blackwood, fragile but with a newfound serenity, found solace and genuine family. Clara had brought her to them, away from the wreckage of her son's life, into a home brimming with warmth and unconditional love. Eleanor, no longer haunted by her son's cruelties, finally found peace, embraced fully by Clara and Liam. Clara, now truly free, embraced her future with an unshakable resolve. She traveled the world, not as a fugitive from her past, but as a conqueror of her destiny, expanding Lunar Bloom's empire with every step. Her days were filled with vibrant colors, the intoxicating scents of her perfume line, and the joyous laughter of her growing family. Her love, once fractured and misplaced, blossomed fully and genuinely with the man by her side. Her life, vibrant and unburdened, was hers alone, every event and every person from her past finally relegated to dust.